There is a feeling that every man has experienced at least once in his life, that strange mixture of excitement and unease that settles in his chest when he meets a woman who seems too perfect, too available, too eager to pull him into her world. She is fun, flirty, and wild. She talks about intimacy like it is nothing more than casual conversation. She has a trail of dramatic stories that follow her like a shadow, and there are always men in her phone, men who text at odd hours, men who seem to orbit her life like planets around a sun. And yet, despite all of these signs, most men tell themselves they are different. They convince themselves that their patience, their kindness, their masculinity will somehow fix what every other man before them could not. But deep down, beneath the surface of that hopeful fantasy, there is a tightness in the chest, a quiet voice that whispers that something is off. Lust and loneliness make it so easy to look away, to ignore the warning signs, to pretend that the unease is just nervous excitement. But the truth is that ignoring those signs does not make them disappear. It only delays the inevitable, and when the inevitable finally arrives, it arrives with a cost that no man should have to pay. There are patterns in a woman's behavior that expose how she bonds with men, how she uses intimacy, and how she will treat a man once the initial excitement fades. If a man learns to read those patterns early, he saves his time, his money, and his sanity. More importantly, he protects his dignity as a man. This is not about judging women or painting them with a broad brush. This is about understanding human psychology, the patterns that repeat themselves across relationships, and the red flags that most men overlook because they are too focused on chemistry, attraction, or the fear of being alone. There are 7 hidden signs that reveal when a woman is dangerous for a man's peace, no matter how attractive she is. Some of these signs will sting to recognize, but they will also set him free. They will give him the clarity he needs to make better choices and protect his emotional well-being. The first sign is when her intimacy feels too easy. When a woman opens the door to intimacy too fast, too casually, or too confidently, most men take it as a compliment. They think it means she is comfortable, mature, liberated, and fully in touch with her desires. But often, what a man is seeing is not confidence at all. It is emotional numbness. Intimacy that comes without hesitation is one of the most overlooked warning signs a man can face. To understand this, consider the real-world example of Mark, a 52-year-old recently divorced man living in Phoenix. He meets Angela, a 49-year-old woman, at a weekend wine tasting event. She is beautiful, charismatic, and within minutes, she is talking about her past lovers, her wild phases, and the things she does not get shy about. Mark feels flattered, desired, chosen. He tells himself this is what chemistry looks like at his age, 2 adults being open and honest with each other. But that night, when he gets home, something in him feels off. Not because she did anything wrong, but because it all felt strangely polished, like she had said these lines before because she had. A healthy woman does not treat intimacy like small talk. She may be warm, she may be playful, she may be curious, but there is still a sense of vulnerability, a soft hesitation, a natural build-up that signals she still attaches deeply. When that softness is missing, when everything feels mechanical or rehearsed, it usually means the emotional core behind intimacy has been worn down. The psychologist Carl Jung warned that the persona, the mask we present to the world, can become so practiced that it disconnects a person from their true self. This is exactly what happens with a woman who uses easy intimacy as a shield. She looks open, but she is hiding the part of herself that should make intimacy meaningful. A man is not connecting with her inner world. He is interacting with her performance. Compare Mark's experience with someone like Stephen, a 55-year-old man who meets Laura, a 51-year-old woman, through friends. Laura is warm, feminine, and curious, but she is not instantly sexual. She laughs lightly. She gets a little shy when he compliments her. She pauses before she shares something personal. There is a tenderness to the interaction, a natural slowness that feels authentic rather than rehearsed. Stephen does not feel jolted. He feels drawn in, invited, and respected. That is the difference between genuine intimacy and trauma-induced familiarity. One is gradual. The other is immediate. Here is what most men miss when intimacy feels too easy. It usually means she has detached from the emotional weight of it. She has repeated the script so many times that it no longer costs her anything, and intimacy that costs her nothing will eventually cost him everything: his time, his peace, his clarity. Real intimacy comes with tension, with build-up, with moments of uncertainty. When none of that is present, when she talks about physical closeness the way someone talks about their gym routine, he is not being invited into her heart. He is just stepping into a familiar pattern she has used many times before. The philosopher Epictetus observed that no man is free who is not master of himself. A man who recognizes this pattern and walks away from it is mastering himself. He is choosing his peace over his temporary gratification. The second sign is when she is close but emotionally closed. This is a truth most men learn the hard way. Physical closeness means nothing when a woman's emotional world is locked behind glass. A man can sit beside her, talk for hours, share a bed, and still feel like he is standing outside a room he will never be allowed to enter. That feeling is not his imagination. It is one of the clearest signs that something deeper is broken in the way she connects. Women like this can mimic connection perfectly. They laugh at the right moments. They tell stories. They act engaged. And for a while, a man convinces himself that her warmth is real. But the more time he spends with her, the more he notices a strange hollowness beneath the surface. Her reactions stay on the surface. Her words sound polished but empty. She changes the subject when things get too real. She can talk about past relationships, but never about her inner world. He hears stories, but he never hears feelings. And here is the biggest giveaway. Whenever conflict shows up, even something small, she either shuts down completely or threatens to leave. There is no repair, no curiosity, no desire to figure things out together. Instead, she avoids, escapes, or explodes. This is the emotional style of someone who has never learned how to attach securely, someone who protects herself not by opening up, but by disappearing behind that invisible wall. The Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. And wasting time on a woman who cannot meet a man emotionally is one of the most costly wastes of all. A woman who is emotionally closed believes she already knows connection. She has experienced the drama, the romance, the passion. Yet she has never learned the vulnerability that makes real intimacy possible. She repeats the performance of closeness, but she never allows it to land. And a man becomes another soul trying to pour warmth into a space that cannot hold it. He will notice the pattern in the subtle ways she avoids depth. Ask her what scares her. She jokes. Ask her what she hopes for. She gives a vague answer that sounds pretty but reveals nothing. Try to talk about how he feels. She looks uncomfortable, annoyed, or dismissive. The closer he moves emotionally, the more she retreats. Not because she does not like him, but because closeness is threatening to someone who never learned how to sustain it. Here is the problem. Men confuse emotional unavailability with mystery. They think her distance makes her sophisticated, guarded, or hard to get. But this is not mystery. This is isolation. He is not dealing with a femme fatale. He is dealing with someone who cannot meet him at the level where a real relationship is built. And the cost of staying with a woman like this is always the same. He gives more than he receives. He tries harder than she does. He carries the emotional weight alone. He starts believing that if he just stays patient long enough, she will eventually open up. But she will not. Not because she is malicious, but because the door he is knocking on was sealed a long time ago. The third sign is when too many men orbit around her. This is one of the clearest red flags men ignore because their ego gets in the way. When a woman has a constant circle of men around her, exes, just friends, co-workers who message her late at night, guys who conveniently appear whenever she is feeling confused, that is not harmless. That is a pattern built over years, and if a man steps into that orbit without awareness, he will lose his peace before he even knows what happened. To understand this, consider the example of Brian, a 53-year-old retired firefighter from Colorado. He starts seeing Melissa, a 50-year-old woman who seems fun, charming, and emotionally warm. Everything looks good until he notices the orbit. There is the friend from the gym who texts her memes every night. The old coworker who suddenly needs emotional support. The ex she still talks to because the breakup was mutual. Then there is the guy she swears is like a brother who, for some reason, keeps asking her out for drinks. Brian tries to stay calm, but the pattern becomes obvious. Every man in her orbit is a man who at some point wanted her. Some still do. And Melissa does not just allow the orbit, she maintains it. Here is the part most men misunderstand. These guys are not random. They serve a psychological function. They offer validation, attention, and fallback emotional support. And a woman who keeps that many men close is not looking for stability. She is looking for constant reassurance. She does not turn to one man. She keeps the whole network alive so her self-worth never runs out of fuel. Now contrast that with a woman who has healthy boundaries. She has male friends, perhaps, but they are clearly defined. They do not orbit. They do not text at inappropriate hours. They do not linger in the background like waiting suitors. A woman who is ready for a real partnership does not need a collection of backup options. She is secure enough in herself to be alone between relationships and committed enough to honor the one she is in. A woman who keeps a collection of orbiting men is not preparing for partnership. She is preparing for options. Each man in the orbit is emotional insurance, a backup plan, a source of attention, a way to avoid sitting alone with her own insecurities. And when a woman needs that many emotional safety nets, she will never invest fully in one man. Not because she is evil, but because her attachment system is fragmented. And here is the dangerous part for a man. Her orbit creates competition he never asked for. He starts comparing himself to men he should not even be thinking about. He feels small tensions whenever her phone lights up. He asks questions he does not want to ask. Slowly, without noticing, he is not building a relationship. He is surviving a psychological ecosystem she created long before he arrived. A woman who cannot let go of the male orbit is not ready for a man who moves with intention. She is addicted to attention, not connection. And no matter how stable or masculine a man is, he cannot compete with her need for constant external validation. The fourth sign is when she uses intimacy to control him. This is where a lot of men lose themselves without even realizing it. When a woman treats intimacy not as a shared experience, but as a tool, a bargaining chip, a reward, or a punishment, he is no longer in a relationship. He is in a power dynamic. And the moment intimacy becomes currency, connection dies. Most men do not recognize this pattern at first. They think she is emotional, complicated, or just needs time. But look closely and a structure emerges. When she wants something, she becomes affectionate, attentive, and seductive. When she is angry or wants to control the direction of the relationship, she pulls that intimacy away. Not because she is hurt, but because she knows it forces him to move. It pushes him to apologize faster, give more, bend more, agree to things his boundaries were saying no to. This is not partnership. This is manipulation disguised as romance. And here is what makes it so dangerous. Men fall for it because they confuse sexual closeness with emotional closeness. They assume intimacy equals connection. But for a woman who uses it strategically, intimacy is neither emotional nor vulnerable. It is leverage, a way to shift his decisions, a way to steer his behavior, a way to test how tightly she can wrap his will around her desires. The Stoic philosopher Zeno of Citium taught that the goal of life is to live in agreement with nature. And it is against human nature to be controlled by another person's strategic use of affection. A man who is controlled by desire is not free. And that is what happens to a man in this situation. He loses his freedom without noticing. Every moment of closeness feels good, but every withdrawal shakes him. He becomes reactive, anxious, willing to compromise pieces of himself just to restore the intimacy she has taken away. Notice the subtle signs she uses. Affection only when she wants compliance. She becomes cold at the very moment he asserts his boundaries. She brings up physical closeness as a bargaining point. If you really cared, you would, or I am just not in the mood when you act like this. These are not emotional responses. These are tactics. And here is the truth most men do not want to face. If intimacy is a tool, it will be used against him for the rest of the relationship. The moment she learns that withdrawing affection makes him chase harder, bend faster, or apologize for things he did not do, she will repeat it. Not because she is evil, but because it works. Human behavior follows reward. If control gives her power, she will keep using it. But a man cannot build a life with someone who negotiates love like a contract. He cannot lead from a place where intimacy becomes a carrot dangled in front of him. and he cannot stay grounded if he rewards manipulation with more effort and more devotion. The fifth sign is when she reads him like a lover, not a partner. This sign is one most men mistake for chemistry. When a woman reads a man too easily, his emotions, his insecurities, his needs, it feels intoxicating at first. He tells himself she gets him. He thinks he has met someone who understands him on a deeper level than anyone before. But a woman who reads him this quickly is not building connection. She is using psychological precision she learned from years of emotional chaos and short-lived relationships. Consider the example of Lance, a 54-year-old commercial pilot from Florida. He starts dating Rebecca, a 50-year-old divorced marketing director. From the first week, Rebecca seems to know exactly what to say to disarm him. She compliments the parts of him he is secretly insecure about: his age, his divorce, the fact that he worries he is starting over too late. She speaks to him like she has known him for years, as if she can see his internal struggles without him saying a word. And Lance, like most men, feels chosen, seen, and understood. But here is the truth he missed. Rebecca is not reading him. She is reading patterns. She has practiced this. She has used this emotional precision on many men before him. It is not intimacy. It is strategy. Women like this learn how to mirror a man's emotional state with unnatural accuracy. They give admiration exactly when he craves it. They validate his masculinity right when he feels uncertain. They create highs that feel personal but are actually generic. And once he is hooked on that emotional intensity, the dynamic flips. The warmth becomes inconsistent. The praise becomes selective. The same insights she used to lift him up begin to cut into his weak spots. She knows where to press because he already revealed everything. The philosopher Musonius Rufus, a Stoic teacher who profoundly influenced Epictetus, wrote that we should not use our words to command, but to persuade and to teach. A woman who reads a man too quickly is not persuading or teaching. She is manipulating through mirroring. She does not build connection. She bypasses the process. And that shortcut feels thrilling, seductive, until the moment he realizes the connection was not unique at all. It was a script, a refined skill, a psychological habit formed through dozens of emotionally intense but short-lived bonds. And the cost for him is that he starts relying on her validation. He starts depending on the emotional highs she creates. He starts believing that she sees something in him that no one else ever could, when in reality she is just replaying a pattern she has repeated for years. When a woman reads a man like a lover from day one, she is not revealing depth. She is revealing experience, and not the kind that builds healthy relationships. The sixth sign is when she is proud of the chaos in her past. This is one of the clearest signs that a woman's emotional foundation is unstable. Yet, it is the one men ignore the most. When a woman talks about the chaos in her past, the wild years, the impulsive decisions, the broken relationships, and she does it with pride instead of reflection, that is not confidence. That is unresolved damage dressed up as empowerment. A healthy woman can look back at her past and feel a mix of honesty and humility. She may not be proud of everything, but she understands how those choices shaped her. She has grown. She has learned. She carries wisdom, not bravado. But a woman who is proud of the chaos laughs about the drama, boasts about the breakups, and frames reckless decisions as adventures. And when a man gently questions any of it, she flips the script instantly. He becomes insecure, judgmental, threatened. Suddenly, he is the problem for noticing what any mature man would notice. That defensive pride is not strength. It is a psychological shield. The Stoic philosopher Hierocles wrote that we should approach others as we would approach ourselves, with patience and understanding. But patience cannot help someone who refuses to see themselves clearly. When a woman celebrates the very choices that hurt her, she is not healed. She is hiding. She is covering shame with performance. She is replacing self-awareness with defiance. And a woman who refuses to acknowledge the harm in her history will repeat it, not because she is evil, but because she is unwilling to confront the deeper truth. Chaos was never an accident for her. It was a pattern. He will notice something else, too. Her stories do not sound like memories. They sound like highlights. There is no caution, no ownership, no sign that she understands why things went wrong. Everything is someone else's fault, and everything was fun or crazy or wild. The past becomes a badge instead of a lesson. Here is the danger for a man. A woman who glamorizes her chaos is preparing to repeat it. If she does not regret the behavior that led to emotional destruction, she has no reason to avoid it in the future. And he will become the next story, the next cycle, the next chapter she recites with the same detached pride. The philosopher Cleanthes, who succeeded Zeno as the head of the Stoic school, wrote that the fates guide the willing, but drag the unwilling. A man who is willing to see these patterns is guided towards safety. A man who is unwilling, who ignores the pride in her chaos, is dragged into her cycle of destruction. He cannot build something stable with someone who is still celebrating instability. This is why so many men get blindsided. They think her confidence means she is finally over her history. They think her boldness means maturity. But pride without reflection is not maturity. It is emotional numbness. It is a refusal to look in the mirror. And if she will not confront her past, he will be the one paying for it. So if a man meets a woman who tells him about her chaos with a smile, he must listen closely. If she tells him she has no regrets, he must believe her. Not because she is strong, but because she is unchanged. The seventh sign is when every relationship ends the same way. This is the sign most men ignore because they think they will be the exception. They think they are stronger, wiser, more patient. But patterns do not lie. If a woman has a long history of relationships that all follow the same script, intense beginning, sudden disconnection, emotional chaos, dramatic ending, that is not bad luck. That is a cycle. And if a man steps into it, he will become the next chapter in a story she has repeated for decades. Consider the example of Howard, a 58-year-old contractor in Ohio. He meets Vanessa, a 53-year-old woman, through a mutual friend. Vanessa is charming, attractive, quick-witted, and from day one, everything feels electric. She tells Howard she has not felt this way in years. She compliments him constantly. She initiates intimacy quickly. She talks about their connection like they have known each other forever. Howard feels alive again, but within weeks, the tone shifts. Vanessa becomes distant without